Welcome to the Daybreak Star Radio Network. Our motto, what we stand for, our passion, all of our international listeners is officially indigenized in the airways. We love the opportunity to chat with celebrities all over America, all over, internationally, because our listenership is so broad, and, so many artists that we play here on the Daybreak Star Radio Network come to us from all over the globe. And today, the main focus, though, is the star of the hour. We're a huge fan of this gentleman here in the studio here in Seattle, and we're honored to talk today to PJ Vegas. Where are you currently at?
What's up, guys? My name is PJ Vegas, Leos from Chimanyawu, PJ Vegas. I'm right here in Los Angeles, California, where I'm born and raised.
Nice.
I'm a city native, grew up here my whole life. My res is back in Tucson. I visit there often, got family over there, but I've been born and raised in the city. My father came here in the 70s for work, and he met my mom, and that's where it all started for me. So yeah, Los Angeles.
Right. It's a good place to live.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's a lot of different experiences all kind of wrapped into one, big geographical area. It's originally it's Tongva land. So the first people of this area are the Tongva, the Tataviam, and the Chumash people. So those are the people of these lands that we occupy, called Los Angeles. So
nice, the Chumash.
Yeah,
they were in Spirit Rangers. They were the other half, and my tribe, the Cowlitz, was the other half of Spirit Rangers. So it's like
amazing. Yeah, exactly.
We have a bond with them.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
So, first off, just want to kind of talk about your career a little bit. Can you tell us about, your journey into music and how your heritage kind of influenced your career path?
Yeah, definitely. So for me, growing up, like I said, I grew up in the city, so it was like a giant melting pot of cultures, ethnicities, backgrounds, and especially where I went to school and where I grew up, like in the inner cities, it was like, your neighbor was, African, your other neighbor was Mexican, your other neighbor was white, your other neighbor was, it was just like so many different people that I got to experience, a lot of different walks of life. So, me being native and also Italian, also my household was just like a constant clash of realities. You know what I mean? My mom being full blood Italian and my dad being full native, but coming from the Mexicos too. So it was kind of an experience of like having to balance between being super culturally driven in everything that I did, and then having the kind of polar opposite on my mom's side, where she wasn't really too, ingrained in her, Italian culture. She was more kind of desensitized from all that, just living in the city herself too her whole life. So for me, it was just really cool to be able to like experience those moments of like deeply being embedded in the culture with my pops, and then also kind of like running around the city with my mom and like just, doing our thing. So when I got time to myself and I got a little bit older and I started like experiencing situations where I realized that I was like, gifted in music, and, I had a little bit of a natural ability to kind of like, sing or songwrite, and it kind of was just kind of taken after my father. I really knew that it was something that I could see myself doing. So I just experimented like every young guy does, like on these different recording sites like GarageBand and, Fruity Loops, and just anything I could get my hands on to try to be, experiment and just kind of work on my craft a little bit before I let everyone know that I was like making music. So I spent a lot of years making music in quiet and, just trying to figure out who I was, just, musically, and what I wanted to bring to the table, because my pops and my uncle, they just like, they've done some, some like unimaginable stuff, like in most people's eyes. And like, even in my eyes growing up, like I couldn't realize how they did what they did. So I was just trying to figure out who I was. And then as I got older, I got more involved in like LA, like just kind of the parts of LA where like you probably don't want to find yourself around 13 or 14. You know what I mean? Just running around with the wrong people, just, putting myself in situations that I just didn't need to be in. So that's when my pop sent me to go spend the summer with my family out in Tucson, right? And I got to really be embedded in my culture for a little while and really like learn some values from my people and just kind of get that foundation and grounding, that I didn't really have like where I was currently, like my situation that I was currently in. So when I came back, I started making music, and I started making music from that standpoint. I kind of realized like where I came from, what my strengths were, and that I had this ability to kind of pull from both areas, pull from my native side, pull from my Italian side, and just also pull from the fact that I grew up in the city. So, when I started making music, it wasn't totally focused on, like being native or anything like that. It was just trying to make the best possible music I could. And once I got to a point where I felt like I had something, I remember I went to my dad and I was like, "Hey, Dad, I want to show you something." And he goes, "What's this?" I'm like, "It's a song that I did." He goes, "A song?" Because up until this point, he never really knew that I was actually taking music serious. It was more of like something that we just did for family gatherings. We would sing, gather around on a microphone or the piano or something. But when I pressed play, it was a song that I did called Love is War. And he was really like, blown away by it. And he was really surprised that I was like making music and didn't let him know about it. And I was like, well, I wanted to make sure it was up to par before I showed you. And he's just like, yeah, he's like, I respect that. He's like, yo, keep going. He's like, I'm here if you need me. Just let me know. He's like, I don't want to get in your way, step on your toes. I don't want to like, throw you off in any way. He's like, but just if you need me and like, if you ever want my help, let me know. I'm here. So from that point on, I was just kind of called to my pops and just, gain wisdom from him and sit down and have conversations about what music meant to him and like how he kind of approached making music. And I took a lot of the things that he told me and I kind of applied them to my life and kind of tweaked them to kind of fit me and my scenario and what I'm doing now. And, it's just provided a lot of like understanding and a lot of patience, because his story is just, the number one thing he told me was just to be patient with everything you do. Don't rush in any creation, make sure that it's the best it could possibly be. And just make sure you're happy with it. That's just like, mostly what I took from all of his teachings was just make sure that at the end of the day, you can walk away from it and you're happy with the final result. So I take that into making music and realize also that, since I do represent a tribe and a people and my family, that like I'm speaking and I'm making music for more than just myself. I'm doing it as a representation of my people and my family and, what I want to leave behind for the future generation. So I guess creating from that standpoint has a lot to do with being connected to my culture, is realizing that, my messages are heard and they're heard on a widespread scale. So it's really important to use that to kind of give some insight to our younger generation, or just create a vibe that just allows people to be happy and just have a great time. So that's where I create music from. And like, that's really where I'm at with it right now.
Nice. There's like, that's a whole movie right there, dude.
Thank you, man.
Seriously. It needs to be put down in script and then like, yeah.
Let's get into artistic identity now. How do you balance the rich, obviously, and you've been talking about it, the rich legacy of your family's musical history with your own unique artistic identity?
Yeah, so that's like the main thing that I always focus on, is trying to contribute as opposed to trying to fill shoes. I more so look at it as like my father's legacy, my uncle's legacy is something that I respect. It's the fuel that keeps me going. It's my inspiration. It's really everything, and everything I take with me on those days when I feel like, what am I doing? Can I keep going with this? That's the fuel that keeps me going, is being able to look at them and their legacy and what they did and how they persevered and how they stayed resilient. They could have quit 1,000 times, but they never did. The circumstances were 1,000,000 times worse than mine are. They struggled so much during their up and coming times that it made it to where I kind of had a head start in what I was doing. Not so much because of the gap of, from when my father had his height of success and to me to when I started to pursue music, it was almost like a 40-year difference. So it was still kind of like me figuring out who I wanted to be because I knew I couldn't be him, you know? So with that, it's just realizing that everything that I do is a contribution to his legacy and is an ode and like paying homage to the work that they put in, right? It's like my father always says, he's like, man, I didn't put in all that work for all those years for you not to be in music. He's like, you know what I mean? He's like, I fucking paved the way for you. He's like, to do something that I know you'll be good at. And you know what I mean? And if you've grown a love for it too, then that's just a blessing from Creator. You know what I mean? And he's, you know, it's like he put in all this work so I would have some direction growing up and I wouldn't be one of those people that are lost and don't really know where they want to go or who they want to be or what they want to do. You know, like we get to certain ages where like, damn, I'm like almost 30 and I still don't really know what my passion is or what I love, you know, or what I really want to do for the rest of my life. Like I see it so many times here in LA. It's people, they get caught up on certain waves and certain trends. And then before they know it, they're caught in the middle of something that they don't love. And it's like, it's really hard for them to wake up every morning and go do it, go to work or show up every day. So with that, I mean, I just know that like, it's an amazing blessing to have someone like my father and my uncle be the people that I can look to for inspiration because they actually were able to achieve what my dreams are. So, you know, having that as a fuel to keep going and, you know, I use it and, you know, everything that I do, I try to like represent my people in the best way possible. So, you know, I know, you know, no one's perfect, but it's just the decisions that I make, choices that I make, you know, the collaborations that I do, the things that it's just all to kind of elevate the message and just kind of put more visibility on natives and in the industry and create that kind of bridge, like you mentioned, between mainstream media and what we have going on in Indian country, right? Because, you know, my father really kicked down that door and I feel like there's a lot of representation right now. And it's like some of the best moments that we've had since Redbone, since the 70s of representation. So I just want to keep that going and I want to be able to like contribute to that as a whole. You know what I mean? And that's really where I go. That's where I sit with it.
That's why we're here, so we can help.
Yeah.
Going, you know, there's so much coming out, so much good stuff coming out from natives, First Nations. It's amazing. It's just, yeah, I'm just appreciative. And yeah, I love how, even though, you know, as you said, you've rich musical history with your family, but you've maintained a just awesome, unique style that's all your own that I really love. So, speaking of which, your new track, You've Been Hurt, which gets requested here quite a bit. The moment I discovered it, I was like, tell me there's an ISRC. Is it on Sound Exchange? I was like, yes, we can play it. All right. It's like a really, you know, it's a very powerful emotional pull of a song. And I was just wondering, you know, for our listeners, what was your inspiration behind it?
Yeah, thank you for asking. That record really was like an experiment, like an experimental type of vibe. I was in the studio and I was having a conversation with one of my producers, a guy that I work with really closely, and he was kind of telling me about how he was in this relationship and he was really feeling the girl that he had met and they had really hit it off. But then he said that kind of, you know, by the second or third date that he started to realize that like she had a lot of boundaries set up and, you know, he could tell that like she'd been through a lot just based off of the conversations that they had had. It was almost like he had this line where he said, you know, she kind of came to me in pieces and expected me to put her back together. And I feel like that's kind of hard for anybody to kind of, that's a hard, like for anyone to do is kind of like, find someone in a vulnerable spot and, have to like kind of help them through that because we don't know, like we may be going through our own personal vulnerable moments ourselves. So it's like, how can we be of assistance if we're not like completely okay ourselves yet? You know what I mean? It's just not really understanding where each one of us are at the moment and just kind of dumping on the other person in a way, kind of. So I looked at him and I'm like, oh, well, yeah. So back to what I'm saying. Anyway, so my friend meets a girl and he can tell that she's in a vulnerable spot. She's kind of coming out of a bad relationship and she's just kind of coming to him, with a lot of baggage and a lot of wounds that needed to be healed. And he's just kind of looking at me like, dude, I really like this girl, but I just don't know if I can be what she needs. I don't know if I can help her heal these wounds. You know what I mean? Like I'm going through my own stuff right now. And it's just like, it just doesn't seem like it'll work for any of us. And I could say, oh, so you can tell that she's been hurt. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, I guess that's a lot of us. You know what I mean? We carry these weights that we don't know we're carrying. And when we meet new people, it's a lot of times without us knowing, because we get so kind of jaded and blinded by the constant day to day, we don't realize that it shows, with the things that we say, the things that we do. It's just kind of obvious, to the rest of the world that like we're going through something or you're going through something or there's something that's not all the way right with you. And I guess that just speaks to that. It just spoke to a time in my life too, where I felt the same way, where I was like, somebody wanted to become part of my life or wanted to, enter my life. And I was just in a vulnerable spot where I couldn't be what they wanted me to be, or I couldn't give them what they needed. So at the end of the day, I had to just be completely honest with myself and them and just be like, look, I'm in a place right now where I can't be what you expect me to be. So that's really what it's all about, is just being able to see the signs that are being presented to you from the very beginning, And when I say you've been hurt, it's just like we've all been there. We've had to be resilient. We've had to be strong. So, yeah, man, it's just one of those songs that just speaks about love, man, and just, sometimes not being ready for it,
Right. But yeah, we've definitely all been there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's serious, bro. That's like literally what it was. It was just, he wasn't in a spot to be able to be the shoulder to cry on at that moment. He just couldn't do it. I mean, and we've all been since.
Yeah, and you don't want to fall in that age old scenario of being, hurt people. So
exactly. Exactly. I love that. Yeah.
And he didn't fake the funk either, right? He was truthful and honest, and he was upfront and direct. And, if he would have gone the other way with it, it's just like, he would have been hurting himself and hurting everyone around him. So, that's another conversation. But I want to get into the creative process. And when you were creating 1-800-DON'T-ASK, what were some of the key themes or messages you wanted to convey through the music and lyrics to your amazing fan base?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, 1-800-DON'T-ASK is just a really fun record. It's just something kind of just shining a light on the Hollywood image and just kind of, what people assume Hollywood and Los Angeles are like. It's just kind of like you can't sit with us vibe or mentality. And it's kind of like flipping the script on that, because like, the first people of this land are really the caretakers. They're really the landlords of this land. So it's like, people think that they have some type of illusion of what Hollywood or what this place we call home really is. But it was just kind of reminding them, like, it had to do something with something I saw on TikTok, where there was this creator that wasn't from Los Angeles, but came to Los Angeles and then was giving her reviews. It's like, this city is horrible, and it smells on the sidewalks, and like, there's homeless people everywhere. They were just giving the most horrible depiction of Los Angeles, and then trying to convince other people that Los Angeles wasn't a place that they'd ever want to travel to. And it just kind of made me feel, and another thing was that everyone here is rude or something like that, right? So it just kind of threw me off, because it just made me realize, like, that's all the people that come from other places to Los Angeles that are having that attitude, that occupy our streets. It's not the people that come from these places. It's, if you speak to some people who are really from these areas, you'll realize that layer that you're stuck in of what you think this area is about, it's really just like the icing. It's just not even close to what we're really all about out here. And And after talking to a few of my, Tongva relatives, like my people out here, because I associate with all the different tribal communities here in Los Angeles, they're just like, man, don't come to my city and tell me about my city. You know what I mean? They're like, man, this is, if you really want to know what we're about, like, come talk to the real people. Don't talk to other people who aren't from here too, making assumptions of what they think these lands are about. Like, it's nothing of what they say it is. And that's when that first line kind of came from, like, don't come to my city and get caught up in that nitty gritty. It's basically like you come to the city and instead of like just enjoying where you are and seeing the beauty of where you are, you get caught up in the hustle and bustle of you. And that's exactly what you shouldn't do if you're not from here, unless you're prepared, unless you're mentally prepared. But yeah, it's just kind of shining a light on that, like, there always being a party or something to do every single night in, LA, and just the whole term of FOMO, of like fear of missing out, of not being invited to places. Oh, I'm online and I see everyone at this party. Why wasn't I invited? Or, it all comes with this whole sense of thinking that that's what LA is really about. It's just like, the exclusivity of like, everyone's on the outside looking in, and it was just kind of a fun way of making fun, We
can understand a little bit about that. I mean, we work up here in Seattle, and we work inside a cultural center, which is inside a giant, what is this, a 80 acre park? Like, we got a waterfront view. We're like, but then I get messages all the time like, well, don't you work in Seattle? Isn't that place a complete wasteland? And I'm like, no, it's not. This, because you saw one video on TikTok of one street of homeless people, does not mean all of Seattle looks like that. Like,
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So that I completely understand. So let's dive into a little bit about, into your songwriting. I was wondering if you could share a bit about, your process and, how do you decide which stories or, emotions, you're going to explore with the next song that you work on? Like, and do you start with a beat or do you start with the words? Like, how does that work for you?
Yeah, man, my creative process has changed a lot over the last year. I used to really start with lyrics first and just kind of created somewhat of like a poem type of different lines of different things. It could be different thoughts. It didn't all have to make sense or even rhyme. Or it was just like witty thoughts that I would be thinking throughout the day. I just, compile like a paragraph or two with like just lines that I thought meant something or that were catchy or that, did something for me personally. And I would just go, throughout the day, just writing down lines, just random. Because like I'll just be walking through the street or I'll be at lunch or I'll be, whatever I'm doing throughout the day. And I'm just inspired by everything that I see, things that I hear, like conversations I have with people. Somebody could say something to me and I'd be like, oh, I like that. And I'll write that down. You know what I mean? Just like random stuff like that. You'd be super surprised that gives me like inspiration. But at the end of the day, I just have compiled all these different notes, and I do this a lot. I literally like every day, I just compile a bunch of lines of interesting stuff, the stuff that really kind of speaks to me on whatever level throughout the day. And then at the end of the night, I just see what I have and I go through and I erase stuff, I keep stuff. And then without me even realizing, the first line that I did at 9 in the morning while I was grabbing coffee, I was inspired and wrote a line here. It'll miraculously match with the line that I wrote at 5 p.m. when I was driving my car, and it came to me from a random song. It'll just fit, and it'll just like, I'm able to like piece stuff together without even realizing it. And then when I get to a point where like I feel like I have a few solid ideas, I get into the music creation process. So it really comes with me just like sitting down at my computer, pulling up the software, whether it's Logic or FL or or really just picking up an instrument. It just all depends on how I'm feeling that day. I've been creating sound catalogs and like sound packs for the last few years for the sound catalog company Splice. So like I just been like on a sound hunting mission for like the last 2 years, and that's what's kind of changed my creative process. Because like the same way I'm hunting for sounds in different amazing things to be able to create with musically. I'm also hunting for words and slogans and random melodies that come from like a seatbelt fucking your ringer shooting because of like or like a bus that's like honking at a certain tempo, like, or it's just random stuff that just catch my eye nowadays because I'm in that hunter mode, like for trying to pick up different wavelengths of like musical creativity. So, you know, like the other day I sat down and I composed a few instrumentals from a few sounds that I had recorded while in the field just with my phone. I just inputted them into the DAW and just, you know, started playing stuff over them and just experimenting with sounds and then just seeing what fits. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like a giant puzzle for me nowadays. I'm pulling inspiration from everything and everywhere and everyone. And, it's really my job to be able to decipher that code and put that puzzle together with a million different pieces. And then once I have something that's a skeleton, then I go in and I really get into a real creative process musically where I like to bring in a lot of my friends who are really like musically talented with instruments like keys, strings, you know, guitars, like violins, cellos, violas, like flutes, like all types of amazing stuff. And then that inspires me to write because then once I have a kind of a skeleton of what I want to talk about or what inspires me to want to even put pen to paper, then at that point, the music is the final push across the finish line to get me to actually come up with those pieces that connect the puzzle. So yeah, it's just like, it's way different. Before I used to get a beat and just write to it. You know what I mean? But now, because of the way I've been creating and the different realms musically I've been stepping into, it's just allowed me to look at it from a different perspective. And now I'm drawing inspiration from literal life. Like before it was life experiences, but now it's like life, like the sounds of the birds, like the sound of the ocean, the you know, just random stuff, the lady singing randomly on the sidewalk when I walk by, like whatever it is, just that's my inspiration. And that's where I draw from.
Nice. So the next question you were supposed to ask, we're going to go ahead and skip that one because he just answered the hell out of it.
You sure did.
Sorry, I'm just talking away over here.
Oh, no, you've got
that was great. That was great.
Rich answers.
Awesome. So go ahead and go to number 7.
Cool. Let's talk about personal drive. Music, like we all know, can be a demanding career. Definitely can eat you alive if you let it. What keeps you motivated and passionate about your work in the industry?
Wow. Also, again, I feel like my whole passion and my whole driving force has actually changed in the last 2 years. So prior to 2 years ago, it was knowing that music can actually affect change, you know, not only in the way you feel, but in actual, like real life scenarios that, you know, we would never expect ourselves or our people to have to be in, right? So when I realized that, like, you know, music is something, it really is the universal language. It's like, it's something that we can all understand, you know, and you could be on one end of the world and I could be on the other end of the world, and we could both not know anything about each other, but we can agree that this song is amazing. And when I realized that that's something that we all share, I realized that that's the connection. That's all of our connection. We're connected by that ability to feel something through the music, feel an emotion, feel inspired, feel sad, feel happy, whatever the case may be. And that, I feel, is what connects us all, is melody, music, the idea of being able to create as a human. Like, I just feel like when I was coming up, I just realized, I'm like, yo, music is something that everyone can understand. It doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what your walk of life is. Everyone can understand music. the sound, the feeling it gives, that's godly. That's creator. You know what I mean? And I just felt like an obligation to be like, yo, if I have a gift, like I need to use it, you know? And then it became also more prevalent when I was starting to use my music to kind of speak on issues and topics within Indian country that were kind of getting overlooked by mainstream media. It really all started with the No Dapple movement, with the Dakota Access Pipeline. I actually got to like collaborate with a bunch of really dope Native artists and Taboo from the Black Eyed Peas. And we got to kind of shed light on that movement just with a song, just kind of like paying homage and like, you know, giving a salute to the people on the front line, the water protectors, and like just being like, look, like, you know, although we come from different areas, we're all from different tribes, like we just want to extend our love and our thanks, and just kind of use our voice and our platform to kind of like elevate the reach of your message. And when I did that, and I saw how much change it affected and how much it affected people to know that that was being done or what they were doing, it just made me feel like, wow, okay, so here's another aspect of why I need to do what I'm doing, because it's like, we're speaking for people who, like, for the voiceless, we're shining light on stuff that doesn't necessarily get the proper attention it deserves. You know what I mean? And so now we can use our music to help elevate the voices of our people. So at that point, I was like, okay, now this is really like why I do this. This is it. It's to be the voice. It's to use my platform to help our people. It's to use my platform to make you happy. If you're sad on today, play my song and feel better. Like, that's what I do it for. But then 2 years ago, I had a son, and now I do it all for him. You know, so I look at him and I'm just like, man, I gotta keep going, because I can't let him see me quit. I'm never going to be that person. So it's really just inspiring to know that, like, now I have a young one looking up to me the same way I looked up to my father, and I was inspired. And it really like changed my whole trajectory when I was a young boy. Like, realizing my purpose was like, yo, look what my dad did and look what he's still doing. So I want him to have that same inspiration. And that's why I do it. It's completely changed. It's not about the platform I can help for others anymore. It's not about understanding that I have a gift from creator and wanting to use it in the right way. It's not about any of that anymore. It's about my son, and making sure he's proud, making sure that he has something to look up to and has a path to follow that's positive, you know?
Nice. But father just doing his job. That's awesome. That's awesome. And yeah, I bump We Are One like all the time. And I can't sing, but I try to sing your voice all the time. We are one. People
We are one.
People yell at me to shut up all the time. But so these next two questions, he also answered the hell out of. So I do have one question I forgot to put on here that we do need to ask, and you can skip over to that one. What do you got in the pipeline coming out? Like, what projects are happening? What are we going to be seeing coming up soon? Hopefully lots of good music.
Yes, man. Yes. Yo, it's amazing, man. I really like, so You've Been Hurt is the last release, of the year for me. I'm taking the rest of the year to really just kind of remember what my love of music is, and it's the creative process, right? Like we were talking about. That's what I love about music is one, it's being able to perform the music for the people who love it, and then the whole creative process, like from beginning to end, really, really like stepping into an area in my mind where like I shut everything out and just focus 100% on being creative and putting together something really special. So taking the rest of this year off, I have 2 projects coming out. I mentioned before that I was doing sound cataloging and working with Splice. So through that, a lot of the sounds that I acquired over the few years that I was creating those sound packs have then now led me into working with TV and film, and actually creating music for TV and film, and scoring, and like a lot of things that I really wasn't even considering or thinking about could be an option for me as far as like my music career. But it's just kind of, I've been led down that path because I was cataloging so many different sounds that, you know, were useful to filmmakers and, you know, producers and different things. So it just kind of led me into that world. So I just dropped something on my Instagram. It's a made-for-TV documentary film called Indigenous Resistance Now and Then. It's about the struggles of the Alaskan Natives and how the government just kind of took away their land rights, their fishing rights, and just kind of made it really hard for them to survive on their own homelands. And, you know, a lot of suffering through, you know, boarding schools and a lot of stuff that their people had to go through. And the government were attempting to make it right, but really they just got them to sign a treaty that signed over all their land. So it's pretty messed up, and it's an actual like really important story to tell. And it just released all throughout Canada, Canadian territories and Alaskan territories on a network called KTOO. It's called Indigenous Resistance Now and Then. It's available on their YouTube as well. And then I should have another project hopefully dropping by the end of this year. It's called Hail to the Breadsticks. It's by Emmy Award-winning writer and director Donna Carey. He wrote for like The Simpsons.
Breadsticks?
Hail to the Breadsticks, yeah. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't. I need to know more.
Okay, yeah. So it's kind of a play on words. It's like for the Washington football team, their former name, they're kind of the writer and director. He's a comedy writer. He wrote for like Parks and Recs and Simpsons and stuff. So they kind of did a bit on Parks and Recs where they would change the Washington football name, team's name, to the Washington Breadsticks instead of what it was before. And it was just like, you know, just like a little like corny joke that was on the TV show or whatever. But when he went into making a documentary, because he's a lifelong Washington football fan, him just generations of being a fan. And he was under the impression and never really realized that the term was racist of what, you know, the mascot and everything that they were representing for that football team. He never really realized that it was racist because he was following like a poll that was taken by supposedly the football team's organization that 9 out of 10 natives didn't care about the name and they didn't see anything wrong with it. But really, that was just complete BS. They never, you know, asked the people on the ground floor. I don't know who they asked about that, but it wasn't right. So he made a documentary about being lifelong Washington football fan. And then at the age of 40 something, 50 years old, his 9-year-old son, after being also raised in this culture of being a Washington football fan, kind of realizes, he goes, "Dad, isn't this name racist?" And then his whole kind of world, like, you know, blew up. And because he realized that like there was no way to kind of sugarcoat this or pull the wool over his eyes anymore, because now his son is like obviously old enough to realize this is wrong. So he did a full documentary where he went out and went to like tons of different tribes and actually got the opinions of natives from all over the Southwest, you know, North America, South America, and even some in like Canadian territories. But yeah, it was just a really cool take on like understanding sometimes that like it doesn't matter what we like or what we want. If a person is telling you that it's not right, then that should be enough. You know, there shouldn't really need to be an explanation on why, or there shouldn't really need to, you know, be just if something you're saying is hurtful to someone else and they're letting you know that, then that should be the end of the story. So that documentary is coming out hopefully the end of the year. It's called Hail to the Breadsticks. I got the chance to score that and do the music too. It's like a comedy kind of take on the whole subject. It's not very like, you know, pounding your head with information for like an hour straight. It's more of like a funny take on it. There's animation. It's really good. So with those two projects coming out, I'm really just going to kind of rely on those to kind of have some stuff for the fans to look at. There's going to be a lot of great music in those films. But at the top of next year, I'm going to be dropping a full EP, 5 songs, with everything that I'm going to be creating for the next few months. I'm really like pulling together all my all my contacts. We're gonna like connect and really kind of put like a writers camp together, maybe like a production camp, and just lock in for like a week straight and really get to work. Because I feel like I've been being pulled in so many different directions this past year, just from so many different projects, that it's going to feel good to be able to lock in 100% and focus 100% on music. So, top of next year, you'll have a lot of music.
You gotta, I don't know, knowing you probably thought of the idea, but if you haven't, hail to the breadsticks. You gotta put some of that on some t-shirts or.
Oh yeah.
You gotta do a little merch collection around that.
Bro, once it drops, I know we need to do all that, because that's just like so hilarious. And it's just like, it's the actual logo for the film is like the football helmet, and it has 2 breadsticks and a little dipper sauce on the side. It's hilarious.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really good, man. And it's like it's a little bit of like a comedic light shed on a serious topic. So, it'll be easy to watch and it'll be clever. It's pretty clever the way he did it.
Looking forward to checking that out, PJ. This is one of my favorite topics, whenever we're interviewing celebrities like yourself. It's all about the Native youth. It's all about the next generation and, creating that pathway forward for them and opening the doors, when applicable. So lastly, what advice would you give to Native youth who are aspiring to make a name for themselves in the music industry and, trying to get to a level like yourself?
I'd say create content and put it on social media platforms. That's something that I'm really realizing now is a door to the entire world. And you could be on a res in the middle of nowhere and create something from the living room of your home that resonates with millions and millions of people. So don't think that you need a giant production or tons of money or anything that the industry or Hollywood tells you need. All you need is confidence. All you need is resilience. And all you need is a cell phone. So, really, like, more than anything, just use the tools of today's life to really help you excel, because there's so many different tools now that can literally propel our youth into places that they've never even imagined. Like, I've seen it happen from a TikTok video. I've seen it happen from a YouTube video. It's just about documenting your experiences and sharing it with the world. That's what it's all about. And on top of that, just don't allow anyone's perception of you to alter your perception of yourself. Don't let anyone change who you know who you are. Don't let anyone make you feel like you're not who you are. Stay strong, stay resilient, and just keep it pushing, and don't stop. Don't stop. Don't stop. That's it.
Well said. Couldn't have said that any better.
Definitely. Well, we want to thank you so much for speaking with us. We really, really do appreciate it. We are huge fans. And everybody out there, like you said, gotta wait till the new year for some new music, but there's going to be a lot of it. But right now, just came out a few weeks ago. There's You've Been Heard. And then 1-800 I Don't Ask just came out before that. And, there's just a ton of tracks that you guys are going to love. So make sure you guys go pjvegas.com, all of that. Again, thank you so much for speaking with us. We wish you nothing but love and the best.
Oh man, likewise, bro. Thank you guys so much for having me, bro. I appreciate you guys a lot. Thank you so much for shining light on us, on our native talent, on Indian country. And yeah, man, I'm inspired by you guys, bro. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.